Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Boss the Hunter here, and I don't know about you guys, but I am freaking pumped for Deadpool 3. So what better way to get ready to go see that film than to play some awesome superhero games, and that's what we're going to do today by playing X-Men Origins Wolverine and Deadpool for the Xbox 360. These are two awesome hack and slash adventure games that I honestly feel if played back to back, you're essentially playing Deadpool 3 the video game. Not only do you have Deadpool, but you have Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. So we're going to look at these two games, look at the many similarities between the two, and have a lot of fun doing so. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
We don't need that scum.
The plot of X-Men Origins Wolverine begins as a prequel to the film, delving more into Weapon X's mission in Africa to recover the meteorite fragments. Eventually, the game mostly follows the plot of the movie, with continuous flashback missions that take place in Africa. Additionally, the levels that do follow the film are generally expanded upon, such as the Gambit fight, which in the film is a very short scene, but in the game is an hour-plus running battle through a skyscraper casino in New Orleans. That climax is on top of a massive lettered billboard that Gambit dismantles as the fight progresses. In contrast, the plot of Deadpool is as over-the-top and insane as you would expect, with constant fourth wall breaks and even false endings. The game essentially starts with Deadpool threatening the developers of a gaming studio into making a game about him and in which he would star. As the story progresses, we find ourselves teaming up with Cable, who has come from the future, and instructs Deadpool to kill the supervillain Sinister in order to save the planet. From there, Deadpool teams up with various other heroes, including Wolverine, Psylocke, and Domino, and begins his hunt for Sinister, battling other villains and countless Sinister clones along the way. The clone aspect comes into play several times, with the game having multiple false endings after Deadpool has killed a clone that he believes to be Sinister, only to be told by Cable that he got the wrong guy.
Hey, Summers! Was that the big problem you needed help with? Because I just took care of it. Like a boss! Huzzah.
Wade, that wasn't...
Seriously, roll credits. We're done here.
That wasn't Sinister! That was a clone!
Gameplay, in my opinion, is what really makes both of these games worth playing. These are two fast-paced, power fantasy superhero adventures that put you in the boots of two essentially indestructible killing machines as they hack and slash their way through countless hordes of unfortunate baddies who find themselves on the wrong end of their claws and swords. These games are both at their best when Wolverine or Deadpool are thrust into the middle of a horde of enemies with no other objective than to kill everything that moves. The melee combat of both games feels almost identical, and that's a good thing because it's fun as hell. The most obvious difference in combat is that Deadpool has access to the use of firearms, which vary from his iconic dual Desert Eagle pistols to shotguns to submachine guns to futuristic plasma rifles. Deadpool can also be equipped with a variety of grenades and traps to further mix up combat encounters. Honestly though, despite a decent variety of firearms, I greatly preferred hacking and slashing my way through enemies with Deadpool's katanas. Deadpool does have other purchasable melee weapons, for example a pair of heavy hammers, but I never got tired of using the katanas and simply didn't use the other melee weapons. The combat in Wolverine is solely based on melee combat, and it does not disappoint. Outside of standard light and heavy attacks, Wolverine can grab and throw enemies, parry or block incoming attacks, and even impale enemies on nearby environmental hazards, instantly killing them. Wolverine also has access to special attacks that can be used once a rage meter is filled. These attacks vary from Wolverine rapidly spinning in circles, claws slashing outward in a blur of tornado-like death, to an enrage mode where Wolverine does boosted damage and heals more quickly. By far, though, the best and most used combat ability in the game is Wolverine's Lunge, which sees Logan launch himself across great distance, claws first, to smash into and impale enemies with incredible force. This move will be used countless times throughout the game, and it honestly never gets old. Deadpool actually has his own version of Wolverine's Rage with his momentum meter that once charged allows him to use special attacks like a spinning katana slam. The special moves in Deadpool though aren't nearly as over the top or helpful, and I rarely found myself using them throughout my playthrough. Deadpool is also able to dodge incoming attacks and move quickly around the battlefield using his teleportation ability. Mastery of this ability becomes absolutely essential to manage large and powerful hordes towards the end of the game. Both games also have very limited and rarely seen stealth sections that allow Wolverine and Deadpool to sneak behind enemies before performing silent executions. Stealth is never required in either game though, and the only really notable part of either system is that in Deadpool, these quote-unquote stealth attacks can be performed with Deadpool's pistols, immediately alerting every other enemy in the area and completely negating the element of stealth.
Knock, knock.
Oh, shit.
I believe that made my point.
Both games also implement the use of an upgrade system in order to power up each character's healing factors, damage output, and use of special abilities. Deadpool collects DP points for every enemy killed. These points are multiplied by racking up attack combos and can be used in the pause menu to purchase upgrades for both Deadpool and his weapons. Wolverine gains experience for every enemy he kills. Once he has gained enough experience, he levels up and acquires a skill point that can be spent to upgrade a variety of things from his overall health to the length in which he can use special attacks. Wolverine also has a mutagen system that gives him additional buffs to selected abilities. Mutagens are hidden throughout the levels and once found can be equipped in the upgrade menu. Wolverine starts the game with the ability to only equip one mutagen at a time. However, by the end of the adventure, he will be able to use up to 3 at once. Another shared gameplay element of both games is turret sections. Both games' turret sections are generally linked to set-piece battles, with Wolverine needing to overtake a vehicle, such as a boat or truck, before mounting a machine gun and destroying other vehicles, and Deadpool mounting turrets outside of standard combat, such as a level in which Deadpool visualizes a carnival shooting game while taking out Sinister clones. Another similarity of these two games is that they both have sections in which our protagonists man the massive arm cannons of Sentinels and use them to vaporize wave after wave of enemies, which are both truly standout sections of the games.
Fly or die, asshole. Your choice.
Gonna need both hands to shoot that minigun.
Says who? I do stuff with one hand all the time. Take us to the right, my newly acquired pilot. I got some ammo to spend. So juicy!
The weakest element of both games is definitely the subpar platforming and puzzles. The puzzles are extremely simple in both games and do little more than break up the phenomenal and fast-paced combat. The platforming is serviceable, but not exciting or particularly well-tuned, making it feel more like a chore than anything you would be excited to play. As far as unique gameplay elements, Deadpool does have a couple of sections inspired by retro games, including an overhead view 8-bit section and a complete 2D-inspired side-scrolling segment. These elements are integrated into the story through a fourth wall break in which the game developer tells Deadpool that the graphical cuts were necessary as he had gone over budget on the game's development.
Boop, bop, beep.
Hello?
Peter! Hey, I was just running around my game and all of a sudden I noticed that, some shit was fucked up. What's up with that?
I warned you about the budget, Deadpool. You literally blew all the money.
Budget? What the hell, man?
Yes, you do realize that all games have budgets.
Peter, sweetheart, Bubula, let me remind you that my website got 15 million hits the weekend we announced. 1 million one? 1 million two?
Environmentally, I found Deadpool pretty lacking, with the vast majority of the levels taking place in sewers, caves, or grungy interior settings. The standout location of Deadpool is without a doubt the island of Genosha, which is a great mix of futuristic tech and ancient-looking ruins, with a lush forest background. Wolverine, on the other hand, has a great variety of settings, from a dense African jungle to snowy northern forest, to a secret government lab built into a desert mesa in the southwest United States, to New Orleans. All of these settings look unique and are really well crafted. I hope you guys are enjoying the video so far. Do me a big favor before we go any further. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's totally free and it helps me out a ton. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. Now let's get back into some Deadpool and Wolverine. Both games have a large variety of enemies that vary from fun to fight to annoying as hell. Wolverine starts his adventure squaring off against African soldiers armed with AK-47s and machete-wielding melee combatants. Later, he'll battle Colonel Stryker's commandos, who range from standard assault rifle-armed soldiers who go down quickly to rocket launcher-armed troops whose rockets can actually be parried back at them for an explosive quick kill, to absolutely fucking annoying cloaked enemies called ghosts, who Wolverine must use his feral senses to detect and kill.
It's him. Squad, fan out. We've been spotted. Weapons up! Open fire!
Another incredibly annoying enemy are the heavy shield-carrying soldiers. While their guards can be broken with a heavy strike, if you accidentally target and lunge at them, which you will do in chaotic fights against multiple enemies, you will get automatically slammed to the ground, really throwing off the momentum of the hectic battles. The enemies of the game do continue to amp up throughout the adventure, with Wolverine also squaring off against several robot soldier variants, African statues that come to life, strange blue teleporting specters, and even four-armed ninja women allied with Gambit. Deadpool also starts with standard assault rifle armed enemies before adding in a host of superpower armed opponents. These opponents are presented as clones of Sinister, genetically altered to give them various superpowers. Some of the clones are massive bullet sponge tanks, others can spin and create tornadoes which can be launched towards Deadpool, and some are incredibly agile with claws protruding from their hands that can be used to block Deadpool's katana strikes. By far, though, the most fucking annoying enemy in the game is the flying clones that can shoot bolts of purple lightning over a great distance. They constantly stay on the move, making them difficult to hit, and while standing still to aim at them, Deadpool is susceptible to their blast of lightning. They also are surprisingly durable and take a lot of rounds to bring down. Later in the game, you will face multiple of these flying enemies along with other opponents on the ground, and outside of one notable exception, I never found them fun to fight. That exception is a single unique flying lightning enemy with an enlarged human head. When the enemy appears, Deadpool comments that the character is the winner of a contest to be included in the game. The enemy is still annoying as hell, but it's a funny scene nonetheless.
Shiny! You can't hide from...
Oh no, it's the contest winner we promised to put in our game.
It's Kitty.
You were supposed to be the pizza delivery guy from my apartment in level 1!
Hey, we got pepperoni and sausage pizza, pineapple and bacon pizza, green peppers and marshmallows pizza.
Deadpool will also encounter massive element-based opponents such as fiery giants with mortar launchers and crystal monsters with ice bullet Gatling guns. Once killed, these weapons can be used to devastating effect against other enemies in the area. This adds a nice tactical element to the flow of combat, giving you incentive to kill these heavily armed enemies first and use their weapons against their allies. Speaking of tactical elements, later in the game, enemies with ally boosting abilities are introduced. These enemies are standard foes you faced before, but will have icons above their heads indicating what boosts they are adding to nearby allies, such as greater defense or additional damage output. Later fights make it absolutely essential to kill these enemies first, as they make mobs of enemies far deadlier. As far as bosses are concerned, both games see our protagonists unsurprisingly facing off against supervillains with various powers. Wolverine starts out with what seems like a couple of interesting bosses, one being a giant rock golem creature that Logan squares off against in the Africa flashback missions, and the other being the experimental Wendigo program super soldiers. Both enemies require the player to dodge their heavy attacks, work your way to their backs, and then lunge on top of them to inflict damage. If either enemy is lunged at from the front, they will catch Logan mid-air and slam him to the ground. While these enemies aren't perfect or particularly exciting to fight, they are fine for an early boss encounter. The issue with them is that the game developers decided to make them reoccurring mini-bosses throughout the game, and they simply aren't entertaining enough to warrant so many battles against.
Should have brought backup.
Outside of the giants and Wendigos though, I found the bosses of Wolverine pretty varied and entertaining. Boss fights generally fall into two categories in the game: gimmick fights and standard battles that expect the player to utilize everything they've learned to defeat their opponent. First, let me be clear, I'm not using the term gimmick fight as an insult, as these were honestly some of my favorite encounters of the game. The two gimmick fights that immediately come to mind are Blob, who must be mounted and ridden through a grocery store, damaging him as he crashes through aisles and displays alike, and the giant Sentinel Mutant Hunter, that after destroying its hands and feet, launches itself into low orbit with Wolverine on board, and must be brought back to Earth by destroying its propulsion systems, sending it crashing back down to the planet below. The Sentinel fight was actually my favorite fight of the game, and the ending is so over the top and wild, I'm not even going to try to describe it, so just watch this shit for yourselves. The more standard fights are also entertaining and feel like more of a gameplay progression as they require the use of blocks and parries to create reliable attack openings. These bosses include the multiple battles against Sabretooth, the running fight with Gambit through the casino, and the final encounter against Deadpool. My biggest issue with these fights is that they can sometimes be incredibly glitchy, especially the final battle with Deadpool. In my first attempt against him, once the fight had progressed to the rim of the nuclear power silo, Deadpool was knocked off of the side and into the reactor. The game generally understands this and uses Deadpool's teleportation power to bring him back to the edge. However, this time he never reappeared, and after running around the top of the reactor for a few minutes, I was forced to kill myself by jumping off, restarting the boss battle. The boss battles in Deadpool are played in almost the exact same way as the rest of the game, with Deadpool able to use all of his various weapons and abilities to do damage to his opponents, with certain attack methods being more effective than others. Bosses also tend to have button-prompted counters that if timed correctly can be used to deal additional damage. An example of this is the first fight against Blockbuster, during which Blockbuster will lower his shoulder and rush forward in an attempt to trample Deadpool. If Deadpool reacts quickly enough to the button prompt counter, he can jump into the air, land on Blockbuster's shoulders, and fire several rounds into his head before being thrown off. The standout boss battle of Deadpool is definitely the final battle against Sinister. It's not a particularly unique fight, but is memorable due to its challenge, as it sees Deadpool face off against wave after wave of full-powered Sinister clones who are able to heal themselves, and some of whom are of the ability-boosting variety. This final battle is also elevated to being the most memorable due to the final, ridiculous demise of the one true Sinister.
Enough! Deadpool, you are repugnant! Revolting! Disgusting abomination! With no place in this world!
Well, here we are, the moment of truth. Can you believe it? You know, I wasn't sure how you'd do, but gotta say, you crushed it. Well, we crushed it. We make an amazing team.
Nearly brings us to tears.
We should do this more often. We thought it'd be better for the game if we did it this way. You know, giving you the glory after we did all the work.
Just push your button to execute our super awesome amazing plan.
Wait, that was the real Sinister, right?
What would a good superhero game or film be without some heroic cameos, and neither of these games disappoints in that aspect. On his quest for vengeance, Wolverine will encounter a host of mutants, some as enemies and others as allies. In addition to characters seen in the film such as Gambit and Wraith, Logan will also find himself teaming up with Raven, aka Mystique, who is seen in both flashback and present missions.
You're supposed to be dead.
I'm a lot of things.
Things that need to remain secret. You're a mutant? I should have known.
What are you doing here, Logan?
I heard your phone message to Wraith. I came here looking for Victor Creed.
Deadpool also has its fair share of hero cameos as well, with Cable traveling from the future to recruit Deadpool, and several members of the X-Men arriving later to assist him in his mission to save the planet. One of the X-Men who comes to Deadpool's aid is Rogue, who during the game is badly injured and must absorb Deadpool's healing factor in order to survive. After stealing Deadpool's healing abilities and leaving him unconscious on the ground, we discover that Rogue has also absorbed Deadpool's consciousness, allowing us to take control of Rogue Deadpool for an encounter against a horde of enemies.
Now that's what I call a kiss, sugar.
Holy shit! We're in her head now!
The girls are as firm as ever.
Ma'am, I'm a little turned on right now.
Despite these games' many similarities, presentation may be where they differ the most. Obviously, as a character, Wolverine is far more serious and brooding than Deadpool, and as such, the Wolverine game is presented as a dark revenge tale, with the lightest moments being the occasional smart-ass quip from Wolverine after killing someone in an especially memorable way.
Kituo, chukua.
I bet you thought you were lucky.
Other than these brief moments, Wolverine is presented as rage-filled and fueled by revenge. Deadpool, on the other hand, is a completely comical story filled with crude jokes, innuendos, fourth wall breaks, and slapstick humor. Speaking of the humor, if you are easily offended or not a fan of the Deadpool comics or film style of jokes, you will definitely not enjoy this game's comedy.
Boop, beep, boop, beep. Hey, hot tits, the pipe I was offering gives way more pleasure. Oh, come on!
Personally, though, I find Deadpool hilarious, and I literally laughed out loud countless times while playing through this game. Outside of the cutscenes, Deadpool also features humorous player interactive moments in which Deadpool can repeatedly perform an action or stay in a location giving dialogue until the player makes the decision to move on. These interactions include Deadpool using a urinal and cracking jokes between two oblivious enemies in a restroom, and a literal slapstick routine where Deadpool repeatedly slaps an unconscious Wolverine while attempting to revive him.
Oh, Wolvie, time to wake up! Rise and shine, Stubby. Wake up! Up and at him! Fine, then. That's for all the clown jokes. That's for never calling just to say hi. That's because I get aroused when I slap people. That's for all the furry midgets in the world. That's because I feel like it. Why won't you wake up? Wake up! That's because the player keeps mashing the button. That's because I like slapping fleshy things with this hand. That's for being in more comics than me. That's for making me love you. That's for making me hate you. That's for never taking us to the prom. That's for always working late. That's for being short. That's for stabbing me in the heart. Literally. That's for never letting me fly the Blackbird except when I crashed it. That's for being the worst wingman in bromance history. That's because I want to see if the player keeps doing this. That's for all the hot gamer girls out there. Hey, call me. That's for being a total douche. That's for never washing the dishes. That's for last year's white elephant gift. Who wants a white elephant? And finally, that's because the whole setup just added 5 minutes of bonus play to the most awesome game ever devised by Mutant or Man. I guess he's not waking up.
Graphically speaking, both games are pretty much standard fare for Xbox 360 hack and slash adventures. Where both games stand out is in their really impressive gore effects. Both games are filled to the damn brim with blood, dismemberment, beheadings, and impalements. There is no question as to why both of these games receive mature ratings, but considering who these two characters are, I absolutely think making the games this violent was the correct decision and an accurate portrayal of the source material. Hell, Wolverine literally starts out with Logan leaping from a helicopter, diving hundreds of feet down claws first, and turning an unsuspecting enemy into red mist. The standout graphical effect of both games, though, has got to be the characters' real-time healing factors. Throughout the course of both games, as Wolverine and Deadpool are injured, they will sustain visible damage to their bodies. This damage is gruesome and detailed, and when both characters are at low health, they will appear as little more than bloody skeletal pulps. Due to his adamantium skeleton, Wolverine's metallic bones could even be seen through his wounds, including his entire rib cage, which is sometimes exposed when he takes abdominal damage. Once each character's healing factor kicks in, however, the player can look on as muscle and flesh repair themselves, and it just looks incredibly badass. Obviously, both characters are clothed, so you may be wondering about the damage to their costumes, and yes, their clothing will also be blown off and regenerate, but the regeneration effect is done much slower, so as not to be noticed and seem unrealistic. Meaning that honestly, after a really brutal encounter where most of Deadpool's jumpsuit has been blown away, I'll see him heal his body and continue my adventure, only to later notice that his suit is back to 100% without me even noticing. When it comes to sound, one great element of Wolverine Origins is Hugh Jackman reprising his role as Wolverine and fully voicing the character. This, along with the game already using his likeness, just feels great, and Hugh Jackman delivers as Wolverine as always. The voice acting for Deadpool is also fantastic, with voice actor Nolan North delivering a completely over-the-top and appropriate performance, including doing 3 separate voices for Deadpool, one being his actual voice, with 2 others portraying 2 alternate personalities he speaks to in his head.
Deadpool, it's Peter Della Penna from High Moon Studios. You know, the guy you kept calling dickhead when you cornered me in the parking lot the other night? Anyway, looked over your proposal. Not gonna pretend I understand any of it, but the answer is no. We're gonna pass on your big game idea.
What? He said no? That was our chance to be in our own video game.
Maybe we shouldn't have written the proposal in crayon. Relax. You know he's gonna call back.
Oh, yeah, because of the...
Deadpool! Hey, it's Peter. You know, dickhead. Remember when I called you earlier and told you no? I'm such a joker, because I meant yes, of course. The new proposal you sent over this morning went off with a big bang in the office today. Genius. Just genius. So, sum it up, congratulations. Let's make a video game.
See? Once again, our explosive personality wins the day. High five! No high fives, we're voices in our head.
As far as sound effects go, both games have very visceral sounding slashes, both from Wolverine's adamantium claws and Deadpool's katanas. Both games also have great combat music that cues up loudly when engagements begin, which in these 2 games is very, very often. While Deadpool's dual katanas sound amazing, that can't really be said for his guns. His dual Desert Eagle pistols are by far the punchiest sounding of his firearms, with all the other guns falling a little flat. I also really enjoyed the final boss fight music in Origins where Wolverine faces off against Deadpool. The music is this incredible orchestral track that makes the fight seem epic and honestly improves the entire battle.
Alright, if that's how you want to play it.
You the best they got. You got any other surprises up your sleeve?
As far as bonus content goes, both games feature challenge modes, with Deadpool's being timed challenges against waves of enemies, and Wolverine's being battles against other costume versions of himself. While simply battling another version of Wolverine isn't the most exciting idea, it does unlock the costume of whatever Wolverine you beat, which can then be worn to replay the game. And if you don't think I didn't immediately throw on the classic Wolverine yellow and blue and jump back into some missions, you are mistaken. My favorite bonus content of Deadpool is easily the unlockable bios, which are these ridiculous comic strip mashups that introduce characters as they appear throughout the game. I particularly thought the Cable one was absolutely hilarious, so here you go.
Who the fuck is that? He's a man out of time. Who the fuck is that? He likes to fight crime. Who the fuck is that? He ain't out the pool. Who the fuck is that? But he ain't a fool. He's fucking Cable.
So that completes our hack and slash escapade through these 2 incredible games. I honestly believe these are 2 of the best superhero games ever made, and what 2 better games to play before going to see or after going to see Deadpool 3. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please check out my other stuff. Please hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Have a great one.
We don't need that scum.